So excited to have Peter with us. We're going to talk. He's one of our new authors with Influence Resources, and we're going to talk about his book that he's now writing called Pharisectomy, which is a unique title. So we're going to get to that book in a minute, but I want to just talk with Peter. Peter's become a good friend of mine and a pastor in Minneapolis at a great church called Substance Church. And so will you just share with everyone just a little bit about your story, because it's a unique story, and I want people just to understand a little bit about your background and what God has done in your life over the last several years.
Totally. You know, it's kind of weird because, you know, I always like to tell people that I did not grow up in church at all.
Right.
And in fact, I actually gave my life to Christ in a nightclub while I was working as a rave DJ, and I know that sounds totally bizarre.
Unique. That's unique.
Like run of the mill. Everybody does it there. Nightclubs, yes. The Lord, whatever. No, but seriously, I at that time, I was just so desperate for something more, and yet I wasn't really open to God. But yet I had a friend tell me, "Hey, Peter, you can actually ask God to reveal Himself to you, and He will." And they were a Christian friend, and I thought, no, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Right.
Like, really? No thanks. But that night in the nightclub, I was so just depressed out of my mind. I was working. I had my turntables, doing my typical gig, and I knew that after the moment I was done, I was just going to go drug myself to death kind of thing. And yet, all of a sudden, that thought occurred to me, ask God to reveal Himself to you. And I thought, you know what? Why not? I mean, why not? So I literally prayed, God, if you exist, then you should be powerful enough to show me what religion is the right religion. You know, show me a sign, give me a miracle, you know, lightning bolts across the sky, Islam, Buddhism, none of the above. And,
right.
And I just, you know, why not? I mean, seriously. And so I prayed this super sincere prayer, and I kind of snapped out of it, and I thought, man, what am I doing? I'm praying. You know, like I must really be depressed. I need a cigarette.
Right.
So I put on a dance mix, and I walked out of the DJ booth, and literally within like 30 seconds of leaving that DJ booth, a total stranger came up to me and grabbed me by the arm and basically said, dude, I know this is weird, but Jesus has a plan for your life and He wants you to follow Him. And I just freaked out.
Right.
I mean, when God answered my prayer that fast, in a nightclub, I broke down and I repented right there.
Man.
And He prayed with me. And so when I think about that story, I think there's millions of people that are just like me, that are desperate for God, but they just don't see themselves as compatible with church. And so my whole passion has really always been, even with our church Substance, has been to plant a church that reaches those types of people. And that's why our church is so unique.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about the church. I mean, Substance Church, 6 years old.
Yep.
And you said you planted it out of the heart of how you got saved. So what's unique about that church that it's reaching so many people, specifically under 30 years old? Talk about that.
You know, it's kind of a funny thing because of the thousands that come on a Sunday morning or on the weekend, 70% of them are under 30 years old. And so we have just this crazy youthfulness in our church. And obviously we meet in 4 different locations throughout the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro. But it's been really fascinating because obviously in order to really reach this next generation, we've had to do things differently than maybe a lot of churches have traditionally done. And really, in some ways, that's almost the heart of the book, is there's so many people where they don't know, they want to grow. You know, every church, evangelical or charismatic church in America says, you know, do you believe in the Great Commission? Do you believe in reaching lost people? They all say yes. But if that were true, then why are so few churches in the United States growing? There's a disparity between what we claim to believe in and what's actually happening. And I believe that the barrier is that we have in the church religiously transmitted diseases.
Okay, so we're getting to the Pharisectomy thing.
Yeah.
So the church has religiously transmitted diseases, and this book, which obviously has somewhat of a light feel to it,
right.
Is about kind of treating those diseases. I mean,
right.
So talk about what some of those might be, or how does the book approach treating those?
Well, I'll tell you what. As a total outsider coming into church, it was a very bizarre experience. Had God not so radically answered my prayer, I mean, when God showed up in my nightclub, I felt almost compelled to accept all of the weirdness of His people regardless, okay? In other words, I was a unique type of unchurched person because Church culture was very, very strange for me. I'd never in my life seen anybody raise their hands. I thought that actually scared me to death. All these things that happen in churches that long-term Christians take for granted, they have no idea how that profoundly affects or deters people from even having a conversation about God. And so really the book is kind of a stand-up comedy version of my story.
Yes.
What things people take for granted in churches and what we can do to remove some of those barriers so that we can have that kind of miraculous fruitfulness that's so many that's happening right now at Substance. Every single week, we hear a radical story of a drug dealer giving their lives to Christ. I mean, it's not an uncommon thing at Substance, and yet a lot of churches are like, how do we get there, and what is it? Well, I'll tell you what. In order to do that, you got to have a Pharisectomy.
Yep.
In other words,
so that's, to get to the point, because you get it all the time. I know people want to know, how do we reach the kind of people that you're reaching, and it's this. You're going to walk through that in the book as far as what the steps are, some practical, some just kind of funny stories and that kind of deal.
Absolutely. But it's really written not just for Christians. It's written for people that are cynical about church in general, and they're just trying to find their way. They're just trying to figure out, how do I pursue God minus this stuff in Christianity that I feel incompatible with? Yep. And so that's also the reason for the humorous stand-up comedy elements of the book, is to really handle it in a lighthearted way. Too many people are so cynical about it, and so what can we do to just get that smile of heaven into our lives and just maybe be a little bit more the church that God would like us to be?
Yeah, well, that's awesome, because you're right. There's so many people writing cynical books and things about, how church should be, or why is it not like this? And I appreciate your heart to go, man, there is things that we need to do, but you're not taking yourself so seriously that you're going to go just kind of completely just jack the church. You're gonna, I mean, you're right. There's hope.
Right.
There is something.
Well, because in the end, we if we really want to help God's church, we need to love the bride of Christ, warts and all.
Yeah.
And so just getting people to a point where they're able to embrace a little bit of the good and the bad and the ugly, and just experience that the presence of heaven in our lives where normal people live.
Yep. So Pharisectomy, you're writing the book now as we speak.
Yep.
And that's going to come out next year, early next year.
Absolutely.
And man, we're just so excited to have you with us, Peter, and so excited for that resource to get out to not just the church, but really the whole world, and get that book in people's hands and see hope given to them about the future of the church. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks, Justin.
All right.